Good morning, everyone, both here in the room and those joining us online. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to this important session at the Internet Governance Forum 2025. This panel, titled AI at a Crossroads Between Sovereignty and Sustainability, is a joint initiative between LAPIN, the Laboratory of Public Policy and Internet, the Sustainable AI Lab at Bonn University, and VLK Advogados. We are truly honored to host such a timely and global conversation, and I want to begin by thanking our distinguished panelists for being here today. I'm Alexandra. I'm a co-founder of LAPIN and served for a few years in the Brazilian Data Protection Authority. Today, I represent VLK Advogados, a Brazilian law firm where I provide legal counsel on data protection, AI, cybersecurity, on juridical matters and government affairs. Now I'd like to pass the floor to José Renato, who will present himself and introduce the central topic of our discussion. José Renato.
Hello, Ale. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is my audio working good? Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for who's watching us. It is a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much, Alexandra, for introducing me. My name is José Renato. I am also a co-founder of the Laboratory of Public Policy and Internet, LAPIN, and now also doing a PhD at the University of Bonn. I would also like to thank Thiago Moraes and Cíntia Piccolo for helping organize the session, and I'm very happy to be here. Well, our discussion is exactly in this intersection between artificial intelligence sovereignty and also the need for us to secure that technological developments that we carry out are consistent also with a very urgent need to tackle climate change, environmental collapse as a whole. So we have been identifying how there's a growing discourse on not only AI, but digital sovereignty as a whole among different governments. European Union is an example, Brazil is another example, also countries like China, the US, with different words, is using the same, more or less the same idea. And basically these discourses and policies have been mostly focused on a need to secure, to guarantee national security, but also economic development. At the same time, we have also been seeing a similar movement, but within social movements. So different initiatives among indigenous peoples against or among workers' movements are also talking about digital sovereignty, AI sovereignty, and etc. And in the global south, both these nations-led discourses and also social movements discourse are very interrelated with the history of dependency, particularly on technology and infrastructure that dates back to colonial times and which persists through terms and periods in which coloniality and what many have called digital colonialism is also influencing these discourses. And well, we also know at the same time that AI is deeply connected with physical infrastructure. So it is very strongly dependent on minerals, on energy and water. So our idea is how to discuss here how to advance these calls for further independency and control over these technologies and their infrastructures, while also avoiding expanding on the effects over the environment, which are leading mostly to climate change. We're also interested in understanding the differences between global south and north approaches to digital sovereignty, to AI sovereignty as a whole, and that is why we have participants from distinct backgrounds here, government officials, representatives of international organization, academia, and civil society as well, including from one social movement in Brazil, which is taking the lead to claim digital sovereignty over their activities. So I pass on now back to Alexandra to talk about the policy questions that we have thought for this panel. I'm looking very much forward to our discussion. There you go, Ale.
Thank you, José Renato. So today we aim to explore the following policy questions. How can nations reduce their technological dependency in the realm of AI while ensuring that the development of these technologies leaves low environmental impacts and supports them in achieving the SDGs? What are the main tensions between the aspirations of governments and communities, including social movements and indigenous communities, with regard to AI sovereignty, and how can they be addressed? And finally, how can the multi-stakeholder model of internet governance can be applied within the design of policies aimed at fostering sustainable AI sovereignty so as to have the demands of social movements effectively taken into consideration? So let's start with initial speeches from our dear panelists. I would like to check if Ana Valdivia is already with us. Okay, I'll introduce her. Ana Valdivia is a departmental research lecturer in artificial intelligence, government, and policy at the Oxford Internet Institute at the University of Oxford. She investigates how datafication and algorithmic systems are transforming political, social, and ecological territories. Anna, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jose, for organizing this panel about like digital sovereignty and data colonialism. And I'm very pleased to be here. And I'm so sorry that I cannot be there in Norway because I've been attending the main international conference in AI ethics, where we have been discussing these current debates, right? And something very relevant that we have found out was that LLMs, so generative AI, is becoming bigger, and that doesn't mean that it's becoming better. Because something that we found out in the conference is that LLMs that are bigger reproduce and learn more stereotypes than smaller LLMs. So that comes with other side effects like environmental impacts, and I've been analyzing the environmental impacts of AI for years now, and I've been analyzing the supply chain of artificial intelligence. And something that I realized is that while nation states have like this narrative towards digital sovereignty, and for instance in the UK, the government wants to develop more data centers to be digital sovereign. There is like another part of this debate that is neglected, which is that this infrastructure cannot be sovereign because this infrastructure depends, as you have said, of like different minerals and other like natural resources that are not embedded in our so-called nation states. So that's it. Like if the UK wants to become digital sovereign, it depends on other countries like Brazil, like Kazakhstan, like China, like Taiwan to develop all this infrastructure. For instance, to develop the AI chips, which are named GPUs, graphical processing units, you need cobalt, you need tungsten, you need copper, you need aluminium, and these minerals are extracted from other geographies that are basically geographies within the global majority, and the extraction of these minerals have like direct impacts on communities living nearby, as we have seen in the past literature on geography and extractivism. But then the increasing size of AI algorithms like GPTs and other LLMs come with other side effects, as I have said, because now it's not only about mineral extraction, it's also about the processing, the training of these algorithms. And this comes also with other environmental impacts like water extraction and land, and I have seen that in Mexico, for instance. So in Mexico, we have the state of Querétaro that is inviting a lot of data centers and a lot of big tech companies to deploy their infrastructure there. While I can see like the positive side of this, which is like the infrastructure of AI is going to be democratized because it's going to be present in different states. That comes with other side effects, like the government is inviting this infrastructure without asking democratically to the communities whether they want this infrastructure there. because this infrastructure, like we know that data centers are buildings that are connected to the electricity 24 hours, 7 days a day, 365 days a year. So that means that they are using water, they are using electricity all the days. And in Querétaro is becoming the only state in Mexico which 100% of its territory is at risk of drought. So that means that communities don't have access to water. And this is something that I've witnessed with my own eyes. Like when I visit these communities in Querétaro, I've seen how they don't have access to water. So they only have access to water 1 hour per week, while on the other side, these infrastructures have access to water 24 hours a day. So AI is not only nowadays reproducing stereotypes and biases, it's also reproducing climate injustice, because if we don't regulate how this infrastructure is becoming is being implemented in different geographies, is going to exacerbate the consequences of climate justice. So something that we have proposed in this conference on AI ethics is that rather than talk about digital sovereignty, that creates sort of like frictions between states, because all the states in the world want to become digital sovereign, we should talk about digital solidarity, and we should talk about how we can create like networks of solidarity, that we help like one state with other states, and we help all together to develop like digital sovereignty, that and how we can become as a community independent from big tech companies that nowadays are accumulating all the innovation. Because, for instance, as an expert in AI, when I did my PhD, I could develop my own AI algorithms with my own laptop. And nowadays, I could see that the innovation on AI relies on big tech companies. So we are not able to develop AI technology anymore. We have to depend on big tech companies. And it has also become clear in this conference on ethics, how like the LLMs that we know, like GPT and Llama, are developed by big tech companies. They are not developed by universities. They are not developed by other institutions, technical institutions anymore. So it's not only about infrastructure, it's also about how we can become digital surveying and how we can develop this AI with our own hands and with our own infrastructure. So I think that's my intervention, and thank you. I'm looking forward to hear what the others have to say and the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Now I'll pass the floor to Alex Motal. He joined the European AI office in the European Commission the day it went live as a policy officer, seconded national expert sent from the Norwegian Ministry of Digitalization and Governance to DG CNECT, HU Artificial Intelligence Regulation and Compliance. He coordinates work on AI regulatory sandboxes and is currently also a visiting policy fellow at the University of Cambridge.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here today, and really great to listen to the intervention of Jose and Anna as well. So my name is Alex Malzo, as was said, and I also I think it's being here today is really wonderful as someone who is seconded from Norway to the Commission, to see kind of everyone come together, and I think it's a really, really bright community. But this topic that we are discussing here is really, really close to my heart. So my background is in social data science, so which combines kind of social concerns with data science methods. Programming oriented, but at the same time with inspiration from a lot of social science fields. But I also have a master's in artificial intelligence for public services. And where Jose is placed, they run a conference about AI and sustainability, and I spoke at the first edition, although I have not spoken at the ones prior. I previously held a TEDx talk on AI and the climate crisis in 2020, so I think for me, I just saw that, I think we were seeing all this compute increasing, infrastructure being built, And with the consumption patterns, in all other fields, it was kind of strange to think that this is not going to be a problem. So I honestly, I think what we are dealing with here, is something that is strange that we haven't seen much more clear, because I think we want to deliver great services to our people, and we want to also have amazing companies and compete in a friendly way as much as possible. But at the same time, we have a shared problem, and these are expressed through the Sustainable Development Goals. And I worked with AI policy full time for the last 5 years prior to joining the AI office, where I have worked now for 1 year. And before that, I worked with a non-profit organization also called Young Sustainable Impact. So I was that had a community of around 11,000 people around the world, and we worked to try to think like, how can we bring forward like new solutions and new companies to address the Sustainable Development Goals. But I think maybe we were a bit naive, But I think we have to be naive, and I think we have to believe in that brighter future, and for sure, that is not to just senselessly use technology without any thoughts about responsibility and without the context that we live in. Because we live in a time where we have a climate crisis. We live in a time where we have, a plurality of different crises that we are facing, and we can only face them in digital solidarity. So I really kind of think that what Anna says, and what she said about kind of the minerals is something that also is very clear. And I'm also glad to say, that where I'm working now in DG Connect in the European AI office, at the very ground floor of the building, we have a really large artwork, and it's called The Anatomy of an AI System, which shows kind of the value chains of the Alexa Echo, and kind of like how that is linked together. And it's an artwork created by Kate Crawford and Vlad Joler. So in a way, like every single time we walk into the building, we're looking at that artwork, by Kate Crawford and Vlad Joler. So I think like what I like about the European Commission, and like what I like about the people that work there, is that they really care deeply about these things. So I can tell you that for sure, it's not something that we want to ignore. It's something that we really want to commit towards. But I mean, today I'm not talking on behalf of the European Commission. I'm not representing their official perspectives. I'm just here as an individual. But I will still tell you about a few of the things that we are working on. And one of them is also a collaboration with that we have rolled out to finance also collaboration on generative AI, to kind of get new perspectives, solutions, companies in collaboration with Africa. And there's 5 million euros there committed to this. So I will encourage anyone working here in Europe or in Africa to kind of apply together for that. And the deadline is the 2nd of October this year. So please consider seeing if there's any kind of good project for collaboration on that. And if you have read the EU AI Act, you might have seen like a small part of it is also that there's a commitment to a standardization request on energy reduction. And there is also a study on green AI running now internally in the Commission. So I think this is also kind of like, although I would like to have seen that we did a lot more. It is not like we are doing nothing, I'm happy to say. But I think like what we have to do is to think about the rollout of all these large-scale policy mechanisms that we are rolling out now. And it is a lot, Invest AI was announced during the AI Action Summit, 200 billion euros. Investment is not a joke. There's quite a significant investment there. We're rolling out AI factories, gigafactories. We have the AI Cloud and Development Act now to try to think about this in more way. There are kind of like a lot of movements to really scale up this digital in Europe. But sovereignty, doesn't that mean that we should decide for a better future? If sovereignty means that we can make those decisions, if sovereignty means that we can kind of decide to do something that would be kind of better for our citizens, better for the population, then I would think that means that also that rollout has to be as responsible as possible, as sustainable as possible, as green as possible. And of course, that is my personal opinion. And I really look forward to listening to the other panelists and discussing today.
Thank you, Alex. A very interesting thing you said about we shouldn't use tech without the context we live in. Jose Renato wants to say something.
No, yeah, sure. Thanks, Ale. I would just like now to, well, first of all, thank the first two speakers. I think that we already have lots of interesting topics for the Q&A. But I would like now to introduce Pedro Ivo Ferraz da Silva. He's a career diplomat and the coordinator for scientific and technological affairs at the Climate Department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Brazil. He's also a member of the Technology Executive Committee of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, and Brazil's focal point to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. And Pedro, the floor is yours, but I would also like to say that I don't think that there's no one now more attentive and also with the knowledge of what's going on in the discussions at the UNFCCC and this intersection with technology than Pedro, and particularly considering how the fact that Brazil will host the next COP now in November in Belém. So, Pedro Ivo, the floor is yours. It's great to see you here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jose Renato, Alexandra, and also other colleagues in the panel. It's a pleasure to actually reconnect with the IGF. After 10 years, I had the honor to organize IGF 2015 in João Pessoa in Brazil. And by that time, AI was actually emerging as a topic, and climate change and sustainable development goals in more general terms were rather just a subtopic, in the context of the discussion. So I'm glad that, after 10 years, things have evolved, and we are here delving into very interesting topics. I greet you all from Bonn. We've just concluded the June climate negotiations, and AI was a very important topic of discussion here. Tackling, of course, the benefits that AI can bring to climate action, and also, of course, the footprint, various environmental footprints, as also Ana Valdivia indicated, that was also part here of the discussions. So, as you know, the world is facing, among many others, the challenge of accelerating digital transformation while staying within planetary boundaries. And as I said, AI is both a powerful tool and a source of new tensions. It can be used in many ways to, for example, model climate risks, forecast disasters. It can be used to optimize infrastructure for low carbon development, but it can also deepen inequality. It can, centralize control, and again, exacerbate many environmental harms if it is left unchecked. So the question, it's not whether AI will be used or not. It is already being used. The real question is, who decides how it is used, for what purpose, and at what cost. In this context, I think governments have a critical role, not only as regulators, but also as stewards of public interest, and also as a driver of innovation and development. Governments must ensure that AI governance frameworks are rooted in democratic values. That is very important, that AI is aligned with climate goals and also protect human rights. At the same time, I think that these frameworks, they must encourage innovation. And if we look at the climate, innovation within the climate context, I think there is a dire need that AI is not only a driver for innovation, for mitigation purposes, but also for adaptation and resilience in vulnerable communities. So I think this discussion that we are having here, and I thank again Lapin and partners for organizing this panel here at the IGF. I think it's timely, as we look ahead for COP30 in Belém, in the heart of the Amazon. The Brazilian presidency of COP30 has proposed a vision, for the COP that is centered around the idea of mutirão. Is a word a bit difficult to pronounce, but it means it is a collective and community-driven effort to tackle shared challenges. And it is a concept that reminds us permanently that climate action is not just about technology, but also about cooperation, participation, and shared responsibilities. So, in this kind of ethos must also guide us how we approach the governance of AI. The current global landscape of AI, I think, reflects a profound symmetry. While, and we have mentioned it here, AI has an enormous potential to support climate action. Its development and deployment are dominated by a few countries and a few corporations, as I think it was also mentioned by the previous panelists. So most of the world remains excluded from shaping these systems. And at the same time, the environmental footprint of AI is increasing. And here, a very important aspect, while transparency of AI is declining. I mean, a recent study, a study from 2 weeks ago, found that 84% of widely used large language models provide no disclosure at all of their energy use or emissions. Without better reporting, we cannot assess the actual trade-offs and design. We cannot design informed policies, and we can also hold AI and related infrastructures accountable. That's why inclusive international cooperation is essential, and it must be accompanied by local empowerment. I refer again to another report that was prepared by UNCTAD. It's Technology Innovation Report from this year, titled Inclusive AI for Development. It lays out, among many other things, that developing countries need to strengthen specifically 3 strategic capabilities in order to be able also to shape AI: skills, data, and infrastructure. So as they term this as leverage points that will allow countries of the global south not only to access AI, but to really, shape it in ways that must reflect local priorities, protect, of course, biodiversity, protect natural resources, and advance climate justice. And, this is not just about developing new technologies, it's also about ensuring that AI systems are embedded in institutions, practices, and values that are transparent, inclusive, and also, of course, climate aligned. And, as we look into the future, I think we should not reject, or let's say we should reject actually the false binary that exists between, national sovereignty and global cooperation. I think we need both them to be rooted in equity, climate responsibility. And I think the Mutirão spirit kind of, conveys this and allow us to come forward. So these are my initial remarks. I thank you all for, again, for the invitation, discussion, and looking forward to the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Pedro. Great thoughts, and I'm really looking forward to the Q&A. But well, for now, I'll introduce Yupin Chan, who is with us on site as well. Yupin Chan heads digital partnerships and engagement at the UNDP, the United Nations Development Agency. And before joining the UN Secretariat, Yupin was a diplomat in the Singaporean Foreign Service. So lots of diplomats here in this session. Yupin has a Bachelor of Arts, magna cum laude from Harvard University, and a Master's of Public Administration from Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs. Welcome, Yupin, and now you have the floor, please.
Thank you so much to the organizers for having me here today. So I represent the United Nations Development Program. As Jose has mentioned, we are the development wing of the United Nations. We're in over 170 countries and territories around the world, supporting governments through all phases of development, all aspects, sectors, and so forth. The digital programming at UNDP is actually quite extensive. We're now in more than 130 countries, I believe, supporting them on leveraging digital and AI to achieve the sustainable development goals. And so it's really very interesting to be part of this conversation and really hearing your thoughts about what is so critical in terms of this intersection between digital and the environment. I'm also very privileged to follow Pedro because I couldn't agree more with some of the areas that he's highlighted in terms of the challenges here. And we as UNDP have been actually very privileged to work very closely with the Brazilian COP presidency in the lead up to COP and thinking about how these issues intertwine. So when he talks about these challenges around AI exclusion, AI inequality, this is also the framing that UNDP is looking at. In terms of considering how the AI revolution is going to potentially leave behind even more countries in the world and really exacerbate the divides between the global south and the global north. When, for instance, projections show that only 10% of the economic value that will be generated by AI in 2030 will accrue to the global south majority countries, with the exception of China, we really have a situation where the AI future is going to be even more unequal than what we already see today. When presently, for instance, over 95% of the top AI talent of the world is concentrated in 6 research universities, which are in the US and China, basically, you really see how we run this risk of having AI be, in some ways, the domain of, as already pointed out by other panelists, certain exclusive types of monopolies, tech companies, and develop in certain ways and not responding to the needs of local populations and the majority of the world. So this is where UNDP really has been looking at how we strengthen local ecosystems, ensure inclusivity in data models, LLMs, and the AI systems that will be generated in the future. This is also not to say that it's not even just about AI, right? Because even before we have AI, we need to have data. Before we have data, we need to have basic connectivity. Before we have connectivity, we also have to talk about things such as infrastructure and energy, all of which are challenges for the global south countries across the board. So from UNDP's perspective, it's not enough to just think of AI by itself, right? You need to think about the entire developmental spectrum across all these issues and really tie digital and AI, digital transformation itself, as part of this holistic approach that goes beyond just one ministry, but really thinks about the broader approaches to sustainability and inclusion and really digital transformation as part of the societal approach as a whole. So for instance, we've initiated a lot of work around some of the areas that other panelists have already highlighted. The gaps around skills, compute, and talent. Just last week in Italy, we launched the AI Hub for Sustainable Development with the Italian presidency. That is a product of the G7 presidency that is looking at how we can support local AI ecosystems in Africa, strengthen AI innovation, and also partner with AI startups in Africa to bring them to scale and to really build that capacity within Africa to be part of the AI revolution. We've also worked on various areas when it comes to digital and connectivity, as well as digital and environmental sustainability and climate issues. We have a Digital for Planet offer where, besides the fact that we've worked closely with the Brazilian presidency, we also lead the Coalition on Digital Environmental Sustainability with the International Telecommunications Union, UNEP, the German Environmental Ministry, the Kenyan government, and various civil society organizations such as the International Science Council, Future of Earth, and so forth, to really think about what kind of thought leadership and global advocacy we need around this intersection of digital and environmental sustainability. And this is in addition to the work there is being done, as I mentioned, in UNDP's country offices all around the world, where we've worked on national carbon registry systems, digital public infrastructure for climate in countries like Namibia, Cote d'Ivoire, Costa Rica, Nigeria, Sri Lanka. I have a very long list of many, many projects that I could list. But suffice to say, there is a lot of information online about what UNDP is doing in the area of digital, environment, climate, all around the world. But all of this is not to say that it's enough, because I think some of the other panelists have already talked about how we are aspiring to something a lot greater than just these pieces, right? It's not enough to say we are doing these projects. We also have to be very thoughtful in how we roll out these projects, roll out these big investments, exactly as just how you've spoken about. And actually, it's very interesting that Jose invited me to be part of this panel today, because this actually came from another convening that we did last year at the IGF in Riyadh, where we were developing what we call the Hamburg Declaration on Responsible AI for the SDGs. And this was actually just launched 2 weeks ago at the Hamburg Sustainability Conference, where we precisely are asking development practitioners, the multi-stakeholder community, governments, investment banks, and the civil society community to come together to think about how, in the use of AI, we have to be responsible in how we deploy and use design AI for development outcomes precisely in these areas of people, planet, inclusivity, and so forth. So we've already garnered over 50 stakeholders that have signed on to the Hamburg Declaration on Responsible AI for the SDGs, which is the first multi-stakeholder document in this particular space. We would encourage and welcome more organizations to sign up and make commitments in this regard, because it's precisely that. How do you thoughtfully engage with AI, and how do you commit to using AI responsibly in achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and in environmental sustainability as well? So I'll end there, and I look forward to hearing from all of you.
Thank you, Yuping. Now I pass the floor to Alexandre Costa Barbosa. He's a member of the Homeless Workers Movement, a digital policy consultant and researcher.
Thank you, Alexandra. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Renato. Hello, dear panelists. I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I am Alexandre Costa Barbosa. As Alexandre said, I'm a member of the Homeless Workers Movement. Some of you may be asking, what is a homeless workers movement, or it's a housing movement in Brazil. It was founded in 1997. If you can imagine, there's a huge gap of housing in Brazil, different statistics, but you can consider even 30 million people live in really precarious conditions of housing. So when you would think that the state has not the proper tools and instruments to really deal with this issue, people themselves started struggling and fighting for this. And I'm just saying that because the same applies to technology and digital sovereignty. Our approach to digital sovereignty, or what we call popular digital sovereignty, and by popular here, I'm referring to the Latin American version of popular, it deals with the massive aspect of sovereignty instead of the so-called folkloric aspect of popular. And for us, it's mainly what we've been doing the past 5 years is like doing things that the state actually haven't provided to us so far. So really fighting for a meaningful connectivity, digital literacy in peripheric and favelas, the slums, and so on. Also fighting for decent work, decent digital labor beyond the statements in the academy, right? And then we realized that what we've been doing in practice, it's somehow what we claim by digital sovereignty. But for this specific panel, I think it's relevant to emphasize that in this first semester, Brazil is also chairing the BRICS summit in the following week. And within the BRICS structure, there is the BRICS Civil Forum, and in which Brazil also added this popular dimension, so the BRICS Civil Popular Forum. And we also co-led the digital sovereignty working group with the landless workers movement, which is another social movement really important in Brazil, struggling for the land reform. And this work was really interesting. You're probably gonna have access to this document in the following week. But there we promoted this idea of people-centered digital sovereignty, and we also outlined some guidelines for the new development bank to finance digital public infrastructures, having in consideration both people and nature, climate needs, and so on. There are also other guidelines specifically to deal with AI development, and I think it's really worth checking this document in the following week. When I mention here this meaningful access, digital literacy, decent work, and so on, is just to highlight that whenever we talk about AI sovereignty, we cannot restrict this discussion to, I think as the other panelists already mentioned it, to like computing power or to regulatory capacity or even data capacity or risk-based regulation and so on, but also considering this connectivity, electricity access, digital literacy access, and also a transition to decent, better jobs in the AI so-called era. I think that's mainly the initial contributions that I put in place. If you have any other question, feel free to reach us. If you're curious about what a social movement is doing in regards of digital sovereignty, you can also access our website. I will provide later in the chat here, and eventually the moderators can also share with the other attendees our approach to digital sovereignty. I think it's pretty much aligned with the sustainable vision of digital sovereignty. And just to add this more critical aspect of sustainability here, right? We've been watching the greenwashing agenda over sustainability in the past 15 years. So eventually it's a time to change to alternatives to development, right? Especially in Latin American, briefly speaking here, Latin American environment, we have other agendas, alternative agendas such as the Buen Vivir, the good living, Buen Viver, or even the commons-based development. I think that's pretty much aligned with this climate justice discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexandre. Now I would like to know if we have any questions on floor. Please feel free to join the microphone. Okay, we have someone.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Raul Manuel, and I'm a member of parliament from the Philippines, representing the Youth Party. So I'd like to address my question to our representative from the European Commission. So, because in the Philippines, in our case, we also would like to look at the labor angle of artificial intelligence, because to develop the large language models, it also entails a lot of labor, especially for those in like call centers, where the structure is like a call center, but what the people do is actually to train the large language models. And the one thing that we want to ensure also for our citizens is how to not replicate, the old exploitative practices in labor, and how that might extend to AI development. So since the continent of Europe is some steps ahead in terms of regulating AI, I'd like to ask if ever there are any provisions in your current laws or policies that also touch into protection of labor and workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder to the speakers when answering the question, just or please also state your final remarks. Thanks.
Yes. So I guess this is a question directly to me, and I'm here today in a personal capacity, so I'm not presenting the official views and perspectives of the European Commission. So first and foremost, I would like to say that. And I have a bit of a background as well as a Norwegian, and as a country who cares a lot about labor legislation and about collaboration. I also always actively talk to unions when I travel back to Oslo, because I think it's extremely important to think about the impact on laborers and the impact on the way that we work, but also the way that we are affected. And I think what you are saying is extremely interesting. Also, because what we are seeing is that all these large language models, they require a lot of supervised machine learning. So we have to kind of tag all these different algorithms, and that requires a lot of human labor. And I think, part of the backdrop here as well is that, for example, Kenya, there were a lot of movements as well to kind of unionize, right? To kind of see, is there any kind of way to increase our rights or to increase the pay that we get for doing all of this work, making sure that these models actually work in practice. So I think your question is extremely timely. And in the European Union, we still have fairly strong labor legislation, right? So I think it's saying that AI does not operate in a vacuum. We have existing laws, we have existing values. So let's make sure that those existing laws and the values that we have really are ways that we act in the field of AI, because I don't think it is right now. So I think there is such a long way to go. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And in a sense, how do we have ways to handle that within the field of AI is also something that I have seen the European Commission is working on. Currently, but I don't think I can give you kind of a definite answer on how to protect overall the laborers. But it is AI Act does include kind of concerns regarding employment as well in kind of risk categories, right? So in this way, at least in our region, it has a consequence. So, but with that, I guess that's my final comment. So, and I just pass it to other questions and speakers.
Thank you. We have another question here.
Yeah, Edmund Chung from Asia. Thank you for bringing the topic and especially linking it to sovereignty and digital sovereignty. I think many of the panelists have touched on this, and I think Pedro mentioned about the false dichotomy between national digital sovereignty and the global cooperation, especially global public interest. In my mind, one of the things that I think perhaps I'd like to hear from the panel, but also to really think about the personal digital sovereignty as well. I think earlier, sorry, I forgot the name of the person, mentioned about popular sovereignty, because it's the personal digital sovereignty, and I think Yuping mentioned about data coming before AI. The personal digital sovereignty is actually a very important part of really safeguarding AI that is people-centric, for the end user ultimately. So it is not even a dichotomy. I think in order to bring it to full circle, it's both, it's not only both, it's the personal digital sovereignty, national digital sovereignty, and the global public interest, which brings it into the full loop. So, that's my contribution.
Okay, I'll take the next question, and then we'll go to the answers. Yes, you can. Okay.
I don't want to hear myself.
Hello, thank you for this amazing panel. My name is Lucia and I come from Peru, which is a country in which digital divide is also a huge concern. And so that's why I think this vision of digital sovereignty also involving things as, digital literacy and appropriation of the technology. So I would like to ask about environmental sustainability, because at least in my country there's like a race in order to regulate AI, and we are like the first country in our region that has AI law, and we are trying to also approve a regulation on this, but there's a huge environmental view missing. And we also know that this is also happening in the digital public infrastructure in general. So I would like to ask, how do you think that, for instance, we as civil society organizations, also with grassroots organizations, can advocate about that without getting into this greenwashing approach that our colleague from Brazil was sharing with us?
Thank you. We have less than 5 minutes. Please, the speakers, feel free to answer rapidly. Thank you.
If I can
I
just...
think Olivia, I was just about to say that you raise your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for this question, and I can share like my insights from like doing fieldwork in Mexico and Chile regarding like the sustainability and environmental impacts of data centers there. I think like one solution would be like to talk to other of your colleagues, because there are like a lot of like social movements in Latin America, and I can talk about Surciendo in Mexico, Derechos Digitales. There are like also like other movements in Chile, and if you want, I can put you in touch with them, because they have been like advocating for like more transparency. Like currently, for instance, in Mexico, we don't know how much water and energy data centers are using. Chile had a platform where the citizens in Chile could access the environmental reports of data centers, and due to pressures by the data center industry, the Chilean government have decided to cancel this platform. So data centers are not obliged anymore to report these environmental impacts in this platform anymore. So I think like we can create like this sort of like solidarity that I mentioned in my intervention, and I would be happy to be in touch and to put you in contact with other organizations in Latin America. And thank you for your question.
Okay, Alexandre Barbosa.
Yeah, I'd like to also react to the first question as well, and just to emphasize that when you're dealing at this moment in this contemporary conjuncture, all of this AI discussion, AI sovereignty, AI regulation, AI and environmental sustainability, it has to do with politics, right? In the end of the day. And in Brazilian discussion on AI regulation, you couldn't add any workers' right in the final approval legislation. And it pretty much applies for organizing social movements, especially popular movements, grassroots movements, to deal with environmental concerns. We've been seeing the indigenous struggle against deforestation in the Amazonian region, for instance, in the past years. And just for you to have a glimpse, the Brazilian Congress is completely against any efforts from the government at this moment. So just to have an idea that it's much more difficult than any specific guideline that we have in mind. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yuping.
And also, just to add to this dimension, it's not just politics, right? It's also the big tech and the profit motivation. And so to the first question, this fact that the labor, there's a need for labor regulation, but there's also a question around who owns the products of those labor in the end, because the LLMs themselves are going to be owned by big tech companies and not freely available to the populations that were, putting in the data or the efforts to actually create them. So there's really all these issues that are tied into technology, which really requires, I think, and I really like this aspect about the mobilization of concerned individuals, groups and so forth that share experiences and thoughts about how to respond to this. So that question about what should we do? And I want to link it to what you had said, that maybe perhaps sometimes we are naive in what we try to achieve. I don't think this is the case. I think the more we sort of get together, share information, best practices of how things have been successfully changed or advocated for, and are very clear in our messaging in what we expect from governments, policymakers, international organizations such as myself and others, the better hopefully the outcomes can be. Because at the very least, we need to be part of that conversation. And thankfully, the IGF is one of these opportunities to have this type of conversation and then translate them into policy and then hopefully impact as well. So my last closing message, I think, would be to continue to speak up, to be involved, and to really think about how we collectively can make those changes that we want to see.
Pedro?
Yes, I know we are, I think the time is over. I think from all the questions and comments that were made here, I think one conclusion that I draw is that, we need perhaps to move away from some narratives that comes, especially from developed countries, that we live in a moment of, for example, a triple planetary crisis, a view that tries to limit the problems that we face in the world. Actually, I would rather say we live in a moment of a polycrisis that contains, of course, the environmental crisis, but also the social crisis with diminishing labor rights. Also, while people still fight for to overcome the challenges of hunger and poverty. So I think that's, and of course, the crisis related to digital rights, which actually is a crisis that has been very central to the debate in IGF 2015, where I was participating. So I think we need to, to tackle all this crisis in a coherent way. And I think encouraging social movement and grassroots movement is fundamental. I think technology can play a very important role here by leveraging those movements. So perhaps that is the final message here. Let's consider that we are facing various crises at the moment, and let's use technology in order to address them in a very coherent way. Thank you.
Thank you all for the great discussion. Can we please take a picture? Can you put the speakers on the screen, please?